workers, right, and support labor standards, if I'm not out there, and by me I'm saying the labor movement, if the labor movement isn't out working with international partners to raise awareness about the plight of farmers in some country, who are at an economic level where it doesn't matter how hard they work or what good quality are, they're at poverty level because of the economic system, because workers are not empowered in that particular economic system. If I don't have that, if we're not able to bring that awareness, then there isn't a business need necessarily, and good companies aren't allowed to take care of workers that are producing for them. And so, I'll just end with this. The frustration is that we seem to be at odds in this country, in this economic environment. That we find ourselves at odds. That we've got companies that basically say, I don't need a union. Love unions. Love you guys. You're great. Not in my company. Okay? Go do your thing something else. But the labor movement's great. Not in my company. And that ultimately means is that we're not talking about individual companies' situation. It's not about Starbucks or Theo's or Mr. Siegel's outfit. It's really not about. It's not about whether they're good or bad. God bless. They're good company. Hey, I got a family member working at Starbucks. I like Starbucks. I go to Starbucks. I think it's a great company. Their labor record, I like that. But that's business. Okay, that's business. So ultimately, I think these environments is a good place to have some critical thinking about the broader picture. And hopefully, I'm not saying that to you folks. Now, hopefully, you're not feeling like, I got to kind of wail a little bit here. But I see this as an opportunity to really have this discussion and really kind of, get a little deeper than what's going on on an individual basis. Anyway, so would anyone like to follow that before we take questions, or?
I'll just make one comment.
Sure.
It's the issue you brought up, is it Costco or Walmart, is a brand issue, and what that tells me is that there's a certain set of ethics which Starbucks also has, which is encoded in the brand, which ultimately is what will make that business successful. So, to the degree that any company is transparent about how it treats its own employees and what standards it has for its vendors, that ultimately will be encoded genetically in its brand, and that's where its ultimate value is. And so you can get there a number of different ways with labor standards that don't necessarily require unionization. You can get there with unions, maybe not, but there's a lot of ways to get there. Transparency is key. The other thing that I just wanted to comment on was the fact that when you think about why we have unions and what's so valuable about that, ultimately it comes down to the fundamental cultural issue that we all have, which is we want a deal. We want to buy something cheap. We want to get a better price for something else. And that's where this whole mess really starts. Because if you buy a product from a company that's transparent, and that you understand, what they're doing to make sure that the vendors and the workers are treated fairly, and that price is reflected in the purchase price. If you're going to go exercise your values, which is ultimately what's happening, then you're going to choose a product for its benefit to you, and because you're exercising your values, and the price is going to be more than the next best deal. So anytime we're driven for a good deal, think about at what cost, and that's really the fundamental issue for all of this. It's not the companies, it's not the farmers, it's your choices as consumers that drive businesses to do things that aren't ethical sometimes.
Good point.
Part of the earlier discussion was about
Questions?
So I actually grew up in Iowa, so I love the visionary for chocolate. But one of the things that struck me when you were talking was how much discussions of what's good for farmers in countries like that has changed. But when I was little, which was under Nkrumah, Ghana's effort was always to do more of the refining and more of the processing at home, and have the business be a national business of Ghanaian chocolate, be that chocolate. So I wondered how you felt, and I actually thought in relation to what you said, one big difference between the tugboat industry and big multinational companies is that as the distance between the owners of the company and local workforces gets greater, big companies get more and more responsive to shareholders and much less concerned about what happens at the community level. So there's a big distance between people sitting in the
Yeah.
one part of making it larger is these higher skilled, more profitable enterprises in the country.
That's definitely one model. I mean, in our case, we're making the chocolate, so we're bringing the beans here, and I definitely believe adding value processing in the origin is good. The interesting thing with Ghana is, it's controlled by the cocoa board, and I spent a lot of time in cocoa over there. Didn't live there, but a lot of time, and have dealt with the cocoa board, and they have sort of this national mentality that's starting to privatize it a little bit. But at this point, it's causing more problems for the producers than it used to. And now, a number of years ago, they invested a lot in training for producers, consistent quality. They have opened up manufacturing, so ADM, Cargill, and Barry Callebaut are all processing there to their advantage. It's not translating into better prices for the farmers. And the cocoa board is in control of any quality premium. So if they're smart in the commodity market and sell a ton of cocoa for more than what they did last quarter, that premium, they get to choose what happens to it. It doesn't go to the farmer. The farmer doesn't have an opportunity. 2 years ago, their choice was to spray the entire country with pesticides because they were, fungicides, because they were concerned about a particular pest problem. And yeah, so I think they used to do great work. I think some of their choices now, they've taken the power out of the farmer's hands and but still controlling it. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but there's issues with the cocoa board. They've privatized. They are adding some value. That's one of the strategies, but it's not the only one.
Well, can I just add to that the issue of the corporate mentality, that's kind of a convenient moving away, if you will. And I can go there. I have gone there. But the point is that the economies of scale and corporate mentality means that there are some wonderful technological devices that are available to low-income people. I mean, we get cheaper products because of the corporate mentality, and you got me thinking about the consumer mentality. That we in effect demand that. We demand that in our buying practices. We demand that corporate structure. We demand that affordable consumerism. It just goes on. Now, where I break kind of, I think, with the philosophy to a degree, and I don't know that I understand it fully, and I try to put words in anyone's mouth, is that we can somehow empower workers and farmers in foreign countries if we would break out of this, best price mentality. I don't know that I have a choice when I go to consume something, that if I pay $1 more for whatever the product is, that I will then it will be going to the worker or the farmer. There's no, and in fact, there's some situations where you're buying free trade, whatever, and it costs more. You ask, where's the money going? And you're not sure you can find out that it's really going back to the farmer. So that's why I think that, that's where the organized labor layer comes in, to ensure that the distribution is happening. And to just rely on the consumer to make sure that, that's happening, I think misses, like I said, I'm not trying to assume a premise here, but that misses the point. Because we're demanding cheap things, doesn't mean that by not doing that, we're necessarily going to take care of workers and farmers in foreign countries to break out of that. I don't think that's realistic. Margaret?
Yeah, I want to follow up on the consumer issue, but I actually want to address this to Bruce and Aileen, because there are really two kinds of consumers here. One is us, going into Starbucks or going into the bookstore or whatever, and buying a good that's produced logo or Starbucks brand. It's a little different than Theo's because of the next point. And the other is the fact that you're big institutional buyers. You're the consumers. Your companies are really, or your organization in a sense. And your company are the big buyers. And I hear the issue about creating the long-term